Hi, Laura. So, what is one of the biggest things that you help women to overcome?
Usually it's big blocks to pleasure and also sexual shame. Just really freeing yourself and having that full potential of pleasure and erotic expression. That is your birthright.
Yeah, that's the same with me and men as well. There's some kind of blockage there that we're trying to remove. And when removing it, we're looking for ways of more pleasure. Is that similar to your work?
Yeah, it's more pleasure. However, pleasure is just like the cherry on top because
Yes.
pleasure is kind of the lack of pleasure is hinting to kind of the root problem of what's going on, which is disconnection from the body, traumatic experiences in the past, non consensual touch, like everything that this woman has experienced in her sexual life or in her life as a woman in general that kind of dims her light or shuts her down sexually.
Yeah.
And it results in not really feeling really that much.
Yeah, it's similar with men as well, and coming from my own story as well, with just feeling a numbness. Maybe not in the sex center, but feeling just a numbness in my emotionality and how I'm engaging with things.
Yeah.
Not like a total blanket numbness, like nothing's there, but almost as if it was like a plateau.
Yeah.
Not many spikes, not many dips, not many highs.
Yeah, like
Stuff like
lack
this.
of feeling alive in everyday experiences.
Yeah, like feeling all right,
Mm.
but are we here to feel all right?
Unexcited.
Unexcited.
Feeling unexcited about life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the men that I work with also want to tap into the sensation of like, is this it?
Yeah.
Can we move past this?
Yeah. Is there more?
Is there more?
Mm. Mm.
And that quest for is there more can be really challenging
Yeah.
and it can be really beautiful. And it offers a lot of lows and it also offers a lot of highs. And it's kind of accepting that total spectrum of highs and lows and realizing that it's all part of this beautiful thing called life.
Yeah, it's kind of our soul craves intense experiences. And if you look at humans, we go to quite far length to have extreme experiences, right? Like
Yeah.
we jump off planes and run down buildings
Yeah.
and can have like really intense breakups with like smashing plates or there's so many kind of extremeness seeking. And I guess as a person who also comes from party culture, there's also a lot of seeking peak experiences of joy, of
Mm.
aliveness, of intensity, of peak love, peak confidence, peak excitement.
Yeah, I love that. Like my brothers are really into heavy metal music,
Yeah.
and I'm not really that into it. Like I don't listen to it in my headphones or anywhere else. But when you go to a heavy metal concert, it's alive.
Yeah.
And you're like in a mosh pit and you're bouncing up and down, practically fighting each other,
Yeah. Get
pushing each
bruised.
other, getting bruised, getting battered, running into each other.
Mm.
And the music's super loud and it's like an incredible sensation. It's an incredible experience.
Mm.
I think that's the intensity that's super sought after as humans.
Yeah.
Not saying that everyone needs to go to a heavy metal concert.
No, it's like choose your poison, right?
Choose your mosh pit.
I think there is a real craving for having ecstatic experiences. And I think there is something spiritual about it as well, because if we're having these peak experiences as very opening, it's like
Yeah.
opening us from the mundane, the everyday kind of patterns that we have. It's like it interrupts a pattern in our body, in our
Yeah.
mind, in our being. And I guess most, everyone has experienced that some peak experiences crash into a really deep low,
Yes.
and some are a little more sustainable. I guess that's how we eventually swapped partying every weekend for having ecstatic dances, right? Because at least we have the intense opening and pleasure and joy in dancing and feeling unity amongst all the dancers, right? Like becoming this like moving body. And we don't have the same come down because we're just getting excited on our own natural supply of exciting hormones.
I still do have an ecstatic dance come down.
Yes, but like peak and valley
Yeah.
is a different caliber than
It's
partying and staying up all night.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. But I think there still is that principle of what comes up must come down.
Yes.
And so with ecstatic dance, also
Yeah.
with DJing, it's like so much focus, so much energy. And then afterwards, I'm like, wow, I'm spent.
Yeah.
I need to recuperate. So then we're looking at this sensation or this acceptance or this quest for feeling more sensation. And is that coming from a place of not feeling the sensation, like the numbness? So when you say you work with women to help them overcome challenges of feeling numb or pain during intimacy, do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the term numbness doesn't necessarily resonate because you wouldn't wake up necessarily as a woman, or you wouldn't have intimacy with someone and just think, oh, I'm so numb, I'm so numb. Eventually, maybe you're aware of it. But I think as women, it's so normalized to just have this like little shitty bit of pleasure.
Yeah.
For us, it's like for a lot of us, it's very normal experience because, yeah, many reasons. So,
Well, what are those many reasons? This is what we're here for.
so the reasons why a lot of women feel numbness is one is disconnection from the body. And that can come from a negative sexual experience, but also any experience that was overwhelming at the time. You could say it left an imprint in our body. It was an experience that was traumatic. And every time we have that, and as a human, it's impossible to grow up and be an adult without ever having that. So we all have this to varying degrees, that our body protected us from too much intensity by numbing out a bit. And this shows up really clearly in intimacy. It's almost like just this mirror of what's actually going on, right? This like clarity of like, oh, I don't actually feel that much. So this means there are some imprints, some blockages that we can remove because our bodies want to feel pleasure.
And are these blockages, imprints, are they emotional? Are they physical? What does it mean?
They're both.
Both.
So yeah. So for example, if I feel very numb in my breasts or my nipples, it can be from dissociating from sensation because I've been groped there, or I felt really uncomfortable, people looking at my breasts. And there's a part of me that protected me by disconnecting from this body part.
Yes.
Also, mothers can have it if they had if they had so much touch, maybe even pain during breastfeeding. They're kind of disconnecting from the breast as pleasurable, and they become more like obviously beautiful, sacred place of nurturing their baby, but it's not necessarily for them anymore. So there can be kind of these psychological parts of disconnecting. But also underneath that psychological emotional block, it becomes physical because then the nerve endings don't actually send the pleasure to the brain anymore, right? So when we want to undo that, we are unearthing all the reasons why we went numb in first place. And that's why a lot of people don't naturally gravitate to doing that, because subconsciously we know that it could get a bit sticky, could get a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, that's why it became numb in the first place.
Exactly.
Because it was too much, an overload.
Yeah.
An overload of sensation, an overload of energy.
A lot of fear.
And so our nervous system is really amazing system because it's there to protect us.
Yeah.
It's there to keep us alive.
Survival.
It's a survival mechanism. And when it gets to a point where it deems something as a little bit sticky, as you said, then it will put in measures to shut that part of us down for the time being. So then is a lot of your work with this numbness, like reawakening the part of the body or the part that is numb?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it is basically creating the safety for these experiences to be like to come up, to be felt and to be processed. And then when the integration happens, the sensation comes back. And it can sometimes be in seconds. It's so magical, like how our whole body, mind, soul works. It's very miraculous and beautiful. Yeah. And another reason that women are numb is lack of boundaries. So this is obviously connected to what we've discussed before. But for a lot of us, we haven't quite learned that it is really our call, what we want and allow happening to us, and what we don't want. And this is kind of very ingrained in especially women, this archetype of like the good girl pleaser, being very friendly, being very nice, being very accommodating, not causing any problems, friction, or disharmony. And society has like a ton of words for women who are assertive, right? It's like bossy. If they express anger, they're hysteric, being a bitch, right? Like, so basically, a woman who knows what she wants, expresses it, and says no ferociously, she's a problem.
Yeah, she's a radical.
Yeah, she's kind of
She's going
what a crazy bitch.
against the grain.
What a crazy bitch, right? So that's a really big conditioning. And what that does is it creates a lot of fear in the body because I, as a woman, that was a really big piece for me. I can't actually trust myself to protect myself because I've experienced myself saying yes so many times when I meant no. So if I get into a situation of intimacy with someone at a bar, I like this guy, I'm start flirting, I would like to spend more time with him, but I actually already scared that if I say yes to him coming home with me, like I don't trust myself to say yes to the things that I really want and no to the things that I don't want because it's so ingrained to be very nice and accommodating, very friendly, very demure. So even a lot of women, including myself, that seem very confident from the outside and seem like, maybe even they're a bit politically more on the feminist side and they've got great jobs and they have a career and they look confident and they dress confident. This is something that happens on a really subconscious level. And it is true for me to say that I've never met a woman who hasn't gone over her boundaries in an intimate context in this way, in a very subtle way often.
And the body remembers going over the boundary, so it stores it, and it has a memory log in which is like, oh, I remember you didn't do what I wanted you to do then, and it kind of stores that, so that then creates the doubt in the body whether you can keep those boundaries up in the future.
I think the body goes more like, oh, you have so much fear in the system right now, but the biggest safety for you is not to cause a fuss. So the body kind of numbs out the discomfort that is going over your boundaries. So you as a woman are able to take it, to just be in the situation and it's going to be fine. And you're just going along. And your body helps you to be able to endure that in a way. And that's the numbness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then how do you, just hearing that, then I suppose a lot of your work is about setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So how do you go about setting boundaries?
Oh, I love this. The most fascinating thing I learned myself with boundaries is that if I allow someone else to cross my boundaries sexually, I am crossing them myself as well.
Yeah.
So I just maybe touch my clit for a quick release, or I insert like any kind of fingers, anything, right? Like dildos, toys, without really checking in if I'm ready to receive it. And this is usually quite a sore point for women when they realize, oh, fuck, what does it actually mean if I'm a no to this?
Yeah.
And it comes up with a lot of grief but it's the most empowering thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like reestablishing this trust and this communication. So when women are ready to face that truth, afterwards, they come up with so much clarity.
Mm.
If they're relating intimately with someone, they're like, this is my yes, this is my no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're saying that, I just couldn't help but imagine, because you're having to ask yourself for permission, for consent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that implies that there's a separation between like, oh, my mind, oh, I want to pleasure myself, and then my yoni, who's like not wanting that.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into that a bit more?
Yeah.
Because we always hear that, oh, the mind and the body are one and everything is one big thing.
Yeah.
But this kind of implies that there's somewhat, perhaps they're not as aligned as we thought.
Yeah. It is very fascinating, the body-mind connection and embodiment in general. So what I'm teaching is the reconnection between mind and body, and that is called embodiment, right?
Yep.
And we can see in many different disciplines how it's possible to override what the body really needs, right? If you're working really hard and you really need a nap and a break, but you drink a coffee, you carry on.
Yeah, try running a marathon.
Exactly. Or you're an extreme sports person, you're a ballet dancer, right? Like, especially in these kind of, and also if you're really into like Ashtanga yoga or things that are needing a lot of discipline, you can move your body, you can do astonishing things with your body as a ballet dancer, but you actually have to suppress your body's signals of like, this is too much pain, this is too difficult. And this overriding is the same with the sexuality, because I can have a fantasy going on in my head and like rub my clit like a rabbit, like and have an orgasm, but that's not really an embodied sexual experience.
So what is an embodied sexual experience?
An embodied sexual experience is if my attention and my awareness is in my body and not in my fantasy.
Yes.
So if I'm bringing all this awareness into my genitals, I would potentially notice that this intense rubbing, even though it brings me to orgasm, is a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know,
Thrill.
I would also, exactly, I would also notice that my butt cheeks are clenched as fuck.
Yeah.
And that there's all this tension in my belly and thighs. Maybe I'm even holding my breath. I'm not even breathing anymore, right? I'm like just this like stick of tension.
Yeah.
This like intense rubbing.
Just trying to shoot up that orgasm to the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I do with men, is like when they're meditating and connecting with the lingam, with the penis, it's this sensation of like becoming the lingam.
I love that.
Like bringing your awareness inside,
Yes.
become your penis. And yeah, it's pretty far out, but it's really there to connect the two together.
Yeah.
And when you can really bring your awareness into that area, and you can feel it, and you can kind of grow with it, and you can feel the pulsations of the blood,
Mm-hmm.
it really creates this synchronicity that's really allows that energy to move more freely in the body, because you know you're there, and then you can bring yourself up from there and be there. And it also puts your awareness into your lingam, and then you realize how the significance it is to penetrate the world, because you're there, you know. It's like your who you are as a person is there, and you want to hopefully penetrate the world with love and grace and compassion.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Sending that from your
Yeah,
from your region out.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed when it comes to this kind of disembodied state that, including myself, a lot of women repeat what they've already experienced. So if I've experienced as kind of my sexual initiation as a young woman, unconscious penetration, kind of like a penetration where I wasn't really ready for it. The person who's penetrating is not necessarily super connected to their cock, but in their head thinking about the porn they saw. This imprint, it tends to repeat if I don't bring awareness to that that's actually going on. So the way, as I described, a woman's self-pleasures might be in the same way kind of disconnected from herself. And when we make the effort to tune into our body and actually ask, like, would you like to be touched here, to our genitals, right? Do you enjoy this? Do you want more of this? And we establish this dialogue. Eventually, our genitals are starting to talk back to us.
Yeah.
And they do let us know.
The flower begins to open.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the state that we want to get in. And for guys, it's really very similar to what you just described as well. It's very in the head. And it's in the head, but it's also in the head of the penis.
Yeah.
You're feeling the sensation there, but you're also like in your mind allowing the fireworks of fantasy to explode. And everywhere in between is kind of like, it doesn't even exist. And that's why it feels good, because it's also like a meditative state where you kind of lose track of your body, because you're just so focused on the head and you're so focused on the tip of the penis. It's like you're not really feeling that the pleasure actually has to go through all your body to get to your head.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating sensation. And sometimes you can just feel it in your head. And it's like your head is being stimulated by your penis.
Yeah.
And it's really bizarre. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
it's really strong energy.
Men can get to a place so quickly and ejaculate so quickly.
Yeah.
Because the stimulation can be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially if they're consuming pornography.
Yeah.
It's like turning up that dial to 1,000.
Yeah.
Because the brain can't really tell the difference between it in real life.
Yeah.
Like the screen in real life. It just thinks that you're achieving the best thing that you can achieve, which is multiple sexual, for the primal animalistic body who wants to reproduce, is experiencing as many partners as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's the difference between that kind of fantasy sex or that kind of in the brain instead of in the body awareness is that there's actually no real connection possible. Because if I would want to connect with you and I'm looking into your eyes and you're thinking about something completely different, I will notice that you're not present with me. Right?
Yeah, there's no presence.
It's like if we have a conversation, you're super absent. It's obvious. And it's the same in sex for women. Not many women can necessarily put their finger in it and name it like this.
Yeah.
But for our bodies, mind, soul, it is so important that the partner that we're with is present. And the more present the partner is with us, the more our pleasure can really unfold. It's like an amplifier. It's like dials our pleasure up by 10 if a partner is really present with us.
It's because he's observing.
Yeah, he's witnessing us. Yeah. And it feels really safe and it feels really sacred and it feels very connected. Versus if a partner will initiate sex with us and then he thinks about porn or even sex with us a different day, a different time, any fantasy.
Yeah, it's just
even if it's like on the wedding night, like some kind of like goody toothy shoes, whatever that saying is.
Goody shoes.
Exactly, that kind of fantasy. It still means they're not here now.
Yeah.
In this connection.
Yeah, I tell people that I work with, if you're not present, you might as well just don't have sex. You're better off just having a wank.
Yeah.
Because you can do a lot of damage. You think you're connecting, but you can take big steps backwards in terms of coming closer together without your presence being there.
Yeah.
So, and the best thing is when speaking with people, guys, about how to be a better lover, how to do X, Y, and Z to reach certain things. The number one thing is, how present are you in that situation?
Yeah.
And, half of being a better lover is, like you said, how present you are.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I need to do all these tricks or these skills. You can get your partner to really pulsate on the rhythm of her orgasm just by having a hand over her yoni and looking at it.
Yeah.
Super intimate.
Yeah, super intimate.
Yeah.
Which presence brings me to the next part of why women are numb often, and that is suppression of all their life force energy, all their Shakti, which means also emotions. So if I want to be able to have like earth-shattering orgasms and intense pleasure, I need to be able to feel everything. I can't pick. I can't be like, it's the same in life. If I'm walking through life and I'm like, I only want to feel compassion, love, and kindness. I mean, anyone has known someone who tries to live their life like that. It's pretty disturbing because it's like, this is not the experience of life. The experience of life is also moments where we're frustrated, where we face our own hate against ourselves, against others, where we're working through grief or anger or whatever, right? It's always day and night. It's always those two polarities of sunshine and rain. And when we are in a situation of lovemaking, it's the same. If we want really intense peaks in our lovemaking, we also need to be able to just have a cry or to, have anger come up and be like, stop, hang on, like maybe have a play fight instead of whatever's going on. And I see that a lot, that women are not feeling safe to express those parts. They're like swallowing them back down. If this kind of uncomfortable, we're kind of back with the pleaser a bit, right? Like these uncomfortable emotions are surfacing. And a lot of men don't know that when this happens, when she cries, gets angry, or has a memory coming up from a previous bad experience that got triggered by their now very loving partner, many men don't know what their role is in this moment.
Yeah.
And they take it personal and they get defensive. They're like, oh my God, she's crying. Fuck, what did I do? Where in reality, it's like, wow, she feels so safe with you. This is an honor. She's crying in your arms during sex because you make her feel that safe.
Mm.
And then when they know how to hold space for that, that undoes or, brings back, like undoes the numbness and brings back so much pleasure for the women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. And it is difficult to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, the answer is actually quite simple. For guys, first off, it's a little bit more complex than this, but it's not really. Do nothing.
Yeah.
Be there. Be in the space. Take a breath. Regulate your own nervous system. Don't get stuck in your mind about things being personal or why is she doing this, X, Y, and Z, and really like hollow out your body for compassion and love and be present and stay there and witness, observe, and then when your partner is moving through the process, just be with her in that journey.
Yeah. You said very often for me as a woman, I don't even want you to separate at all from me. I still want you to, if it's penetration, I still want you to be there. I don't even want you to like leave me or like give me space. It's like good to ask, I guess. What do you need right now?
Yeah, I think you
But
can always
usually
ask.
it's exactly what you said, like just the nothingness.
Just stay still.
It's perfect how
You
it
don't-
is. Like just let that energy move.
Yeah.
Those emotions.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you don't even need to feel into it, but you don't even need to say things like, reassuring statements.
Yeah.
Just be. And this is also the element of the consciousness of Shiva, of like observing Shakti. Is like you can observe the peak orgasm, which is like amazing and makes you feel good. But how good are you observing the unwinding as well? And both of them are just as important as each other.
Yeah.
Because it's experiencing the whole totality of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you become a really present, mindful, and considerate partner, is when you're hey, I want to experience this bliss state with you, but I also have space and strength and compassion to experience the unwinding as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this also, it takes a lot, and a key component of this is to really separate the intimacy from your own pursuit of pleasure. Like, if we're making love and I'm really just wanting to orgasm and I just want to feel this pleasure because, you know what, I want to feel pleasure. And then all of a sudden you unravel into an emotional state, then I need to be able to be like, oh, I don't want to feel pleasure. It's fine. You know, I don't need to pursue that pleasure anymore because it's not happening. No big deal. And it might come back later, but if I'm still in my head of like, oh, why is she doing this? Because I'm still stuck on this pursuit of pleasure. It's quite selfish, really, because I'm just trying to enjoy
Yeah.
instead of experience what can be experienced through intimacy.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's like that as a guy, because if there is some, like, I guess, shadow around, maybe still shame around desire and like having pleasure, if then there's a lot of arousal and this kind of like desire for peak orgasm, and then the woman you're with is experiencing something like, she starts crying. If I put myself into a place of a guy, like, would be quite a shame spiral for me. Can you relate to that?
I wouldn't say shame, but I
Yeah.
would say more there was like elements of having to deal with the frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
Yeah. Of like, why is she doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, of like, you know, so it could be in the situation where, let's say you haven't had sex in a while and then you're having sex, you feel happy because you're having sex, and then all of a sudden huge emotions come up and you're
Yeah.
back into like, oh, this is an emotional process instead of pleasure and fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, there can be that element of
Yeah.
like,
Because when the
oh,
arousal is high, that's such a strong energy that, yeah, especially when it's in the head, right? That's what you always say, like bringing the sexual energy to the heart. Because
yeah,
if it's in the heart and you see your partner so vulnerable and crying, it's so intimate. So it's like really beautiful connection and it can unfold into anything.
yeah,
But if the sexual energy, as you described in the beginning, is in the tip of the penis and in the head,
yeah,
then there's just no, it doesn't sound like there's much space for that compassion to be like, oh, wow, yeah, we had pleasure and fun. Now we're having an emotional process.
yeah, I know. Yeah, completely. And the thing that is, it's just the general lesson when it comes to male perspective heterosexual relationships with women. Okay. Is like, if you are selfish in the situation of like, oh, I wanted pleasure, I'm focused on my pleasure, and this situation arises, you are essentially going to be limiting your pleasure in the future.
Yeah.
However, if you are, compassionate and really focused on the connection side of things
Yeah.
and shelf the idea of having pleasure because you're now holding space and you hold space for your partner to fall apart,
Mm.
I'm pretty sure this will open up a lot more potentiality to have more intimacy and more connection with your partner. Maybe in a few moments or maybe down the road. This is like how essential relationships are built
Yeah.
stronger and are able to grow.
Yeah.
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 So it's really just, it's about selflessness. It's about, okay, I I might have wanted pleasure and I really, I really want it, but at the same time, I'm going to put that on the back burner because I feel this love and compassion for my partner and I want to hold space for my partner,
Yeah.
and allowing and being there and being that stability
Yeah.
will bring you closer together.
This reminds me actually of Shashi Soluna. She would always say, our Tantra teacher, she says, if you want your women to be multi-orgasmic, you have to be there for her being multi-emotional.
For sure.
Because one thing only works with the other, right? So it's like if someone be like, oh, this woman is very frigid, or some other misogynist comment, it's basically like, yeah, she hasn't met a selfless man who makes it possible for her to be a really happy slut. Because to be so open and like expressive and generous as a woman with our sexuality, which can be so fun, we need to be sure that we can fall apart in a super erotic sense, but also just as a human being.
Yeah.
And I think what many people don't really understand is that when we are opening into arousal, so when we're actually on a physical level become aroused, our neofrontal cortex, so the frontal lobe of our brain, is going offline. That's why people do stupid decisions like, oh, we don't need a condom, right? So we are not thinking clearly when we're really aroused. So in a way, it does make us a bit dumb if you think of intelligence as a measure of
Drunk on eros.
Exactly. It makes you a bit drunk. So that's one thing. Our rational, logical brain goes offline. And what becomes online is our primal brain. And our primal brain is not only reproduction and arousal, it is also our our emotional expression. So especially if a woman has experienced any form of trauma, when we are going into arousal, we're also opening the door for those emotional processes that need completion, right? That need healing. And it's therefore really, really powerful when we are with a partner who can hold space for that, because we can heal in such a short time.
Yeah.
And so profoundly. And at the same time, we can also damage and cause pain in such a short time and so profoundly.
Yeah. It's very vulnerable.
It's so powerful.
Very tender.
And that's how it can go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of responsibility involved.
Yeah.
In terms of, thinking about what you're doing, thinking about your actions and who they're benefiting, whether they're benefiting yourself. And it's an area that's really prone to exacerbate the shadow element within you, because it is that subconscious that's coming out. It is tapping into this primal area of your body, similar to your subconscious, that allows things to come to light that you might be hiding from.
Yeah.
And that's why it's super important. And that's why a lot of the Taoist practices with energy cultivation, the first part of most of all the work is clearing your energetic channels, clearing your emotional channels, clearing shadow work, clearing the physical energy blockages in your body. So when you are entering with intimacy with your partner, you're coming in nice and clean. Because that energy it multiplies. So if you're angry and then you become aroused, you're going to be double angry.
Yeah.
And then you're having sex double angry, and it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well, really, because you are going to experience and do things that might be a bit different, like make love a bit differently, probably maybe from a taking perspective or like a release way, but you're also then passing on all of this energy to your partner, to her yoni, which is incredibly receptive to all energies.
And she will dish it back out to you later.
She'll dish it back out to you with being passive aggressive, coming in and telling you off for leaving your socks on the floor.
Exactly. Yeah, it's can really be simple like that. How the energy goes round in circles. Yeah. And what did I want to say? Oh yeah. For women, the energy multiplies our emotions as well, right? So how that manifests in my body is that if I've already felt a bit tense or a bit frustrated or a bit sad during the day, and you approach me to be intimate with me, there is a natural kind of armor around me, a natural resistance, because either I'm aware of it or not, but a part of me knows that if I am if I open with you and I engage in intimacy and physical touch and connection, being seen by you, I will have to open my body and take some of this armor off. and underneath this emotion. So to even be able to have sex with you, there's a part of me that knows this clunkiness of softening into that.
Mm-hmm.
And the sexual energy for a moment will amplify what's going on with me. So you're approaching me because you want to have sex and I'm already feel tense. I will be like, ugh, like feeling really tense, almost like wanting to push you away.
Mm-hmm.
So in that moment, it's intensifies the sexual energy between us, intensifies my experience of discomfort.
Yeah.
And it's a real practice for me to soften into that, to acknowledge like, oh, wow, I can't even have you hug me right now. Really, I can't enjoy it because I just feel so stiff and ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take a breath in your arm and I physically relax my shoulders, my chest. I kind of sink in. Sometimes I put my body weight onto you
Mm-hmm.
and I just focus on my breathing there. And sometimes I even have some tears coming if I do that, because this act of softening from being stressed or tense in a day just needs, that softness, that armor coming off can come with some tears, can come with like a real rawness.
Uh-huh.
And if I'm not able to do that, we will not be intimate that day.
Yeah.
So it's like for women, it's a real practice to be able to soften.
Yeah. That's coming from the perspective that it's like the man doesn't have to change, because I can also not approach you with a I want to have sex attitude,
Of course, I'm not saying that
because like
it's a great idea to come and be like, I want to have sex. But if I feel you wanting, if you're reaching out for connection,
yeah.
I'm doing something in the room, I'm like fiddling around and you come and you want to hug me.
Mm.
In that moment, you're not approaching me to have sex at all, but you are approaching me for intimate connection, for physical
Yes.
touch.
Yeah.
And that's already enough when I feel frustrated or stressed or tense that day, or I have loads of work on my mind, that I can't receive you from that
Yeah.
place. So even these like mundane, like little everyday intimacy moments require for me to soften a lot of times.
Yeah.
Or if I do something in at the sink, like whatever the dishes, and you come from behind and hug me, 9 out of 10 times I have to physically soften into that.
Mm.
Because my first reaction is an armor of like,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good to be aware of that, because it is, I think every man has played has done the casual slap on the bum to the partner, just walking by, slap on the bum, and you're like, yeah, it's quite interesting, because you're like, why did I do that? Obviously it's like fun, it felt good. Is there some kind of like possessiveness into it? Is it just, yeah, it's such a weird one.
yeah,
And then the cuddle one is, yeah, that's also a thing.
yeah,
But guys are looking for, we always say like, oh, guys just want to have sex all the time. And guys can have sex quite a lot, for sure. But deep down, it's really looking for this connection and feeling wholeness, this intimacy that
yeah,
comes about of feeling, and it's very similar to everyone else, really. Feeling loved, feeling seen, feeling appreciated.
yeah,
And a lot of this comes from, yeah, being intimate.
yeah. Yeah, and if men are really obsessed with like breasts or sex or I guess, yeah, slapping bums, also underneath all of that is usually, yeah, desire. I don't want to say it, it's a bit offensive. A mummy wound. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like really seeking for that feminine love and nurture in the wrong way,
Yeah.
because it's an obsession, right? But like especially with breasts and like, yeah, I think
Yeah, within the archetypes, that is the lover, when there's too much of the lover in
Yeah.
the 4 archetypes of masculinity, and that would verge into the obsession, the addiction,
Yeah.
where the sensation of pleasure and the sensation of connection becomes a little bit too intoxicating, and that's when there's a surplus of the lover.
Yeah.
And so within the archetype structure, we would want to bring that back into a healthy maturity of the lover, who is passionate, connecting, and very loving person, but at the same time is not using this love to to satisfy its own shadow
Yeah.
or wounds that have come from childhood.
And on the other hand, if that's like, this is the shadow work that sexuality calls us to do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
if we can actually admit that to ourselves, that we're having this like unfulfilled craving, and someone can fulfill that craving, right? Like,
Mm,
I know a lot of tantrika friends who have held men, like a baby on their breasts, and they've
yeah.
been like pouring motherly love into them
Yeah.
in the sexual context, just like a sexual energy that's nurturing, that's unconditional love, that's like holding, that's just pure love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, again, the potential of that's the most that can be like the most healing moment for this person, who's been chasing after, I guess, the thrill for a long time, and then actually really getting that itch scratched that wasn't scratched for such a long time.
Yeah, it can be incredibly healing. And this comes out to why, you know, some women have a particular numbness, just generalizing around yoni or other sensitive parts on their
Yeah.
body, and men tend to have a numbness emotionally throughout their body, and we can say it at the heart level.
Yeah.
And this is where the armor is really kept up, where when we're looking at polarity of the energetic fields in the body, a man's heart space is his receiving, his negative pole, and the woman's heart space is her breast, is her positive pole,
Energetically, yeah.
energetically. And so, and the man's lingam is positive and the woman's yoni is negative. And this creates the dynamics of the flow of energy of the cycle, of the circle. But subsequently, this means that men are really vulnerable and susceptible to having a lot of trauma and hurt and pain in the heart space. And we see that quite a lot in society, where men, because they experience this, create huge boundaries and protectionism
Walls.
and walls around their space. And so we have this narrative now that men are lone wolves, that they, operate in isolation, and that they are these stoic, brave, emotionless warriors. But this is just a fabrication of patriarchy, essentially.
Mm.
And it's very far away from the truth.
Yeah.
And you can see this by looking at pre-adolescent boys and noticing how connected they are to their emotions,
Yeah.
and how dynamically they dance with masculine and feminine energies,
Yeah.
and how fluid they flow through life. And you're like, wow, obviously not everyone's the same, and you can have tougher boys and more feminine boys, of course, but when you really look at it across the scale, it's like, wow, they're all really quite emotionally aware. And then puberty begins to set in, and they begin to absorb the social structure of what it means to be a man. And this is a social structure that's propagated by patriarchy, essentially, to keep the order in place. And then they realize that if they're going to survive, they need to toughen up. If they're going to survive, they need to start thinking about how they can see their sexual prowess as a way of being a man, and how they can be a stronger man to survive this potentially quite savage reality of what it means. And that is to deaden emotions.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of men's groups right now are so important and so so really needed, because men have really lost that connection of what it means to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And there's an idea that women don't want vulnerable men,
Yeah.
or other men will take advantage of you if you are vulnerable. So it's a huge pecking order in which ideally the structure of patriarchy has the upper echelons of the people who are the fearless warriors without any connection to their emotions,
Yeah.
because they're the ones that are going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's brutal, really. And that's why men have a really difficult time.
Yeah.
But like you said, to experience more pleasure, to experience more what it means to be alive, you need to experience the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
So you need to experience the depths of what it is to be lonely, what it is to be sad, what it is to have a broken heart.
Yeah.
And these broken heart situations are a lot of reasons why men shut down, really.
Yeah.
It's essentially broken hearts.
Yeah.
And broken hearts lead, and speaking from my own experience, broken hearts lead to shutting down emotionally and then looking for other ways to soothe pain. And that's with substances mainly, or it could be with other things,
Even porn. Yeah.
even porn.
Yeah.
And because substances or using external soothing mechanisms essentially put you in control. Even though you're not in control, you're in your mind, you're in control because there's an element of choice. And that's when it gets a bit fuzzy, because when you're really addicted to it, there is no choice.
Yeah.
But you think there's a choice. But yeah.
Yes, the illusion of control.
So a lot of stuff that men are doing now, and I'm helping them do it, and other great people are helping them do that, really is to connect with their vulnerability, connect with their acceptance of themselves in their totality, and to do healing work where they are processing all the things that are behind this armor that they've put in place.
Yeah.
And when this armor is removed, the channels of energy become a lot more open and free to flow freely. And you can see this in body composition and how people move, and the energy of the way that our energy moves. It wants to be nice and soft. It doesn't want to be rigid. It wants to have that subtlety, that to be able to flow freely. And this is how we essentially are working towards getting energy up from our sex center up to our hearts, to feel more love and also to feel more pleasure.
Yeah. So for really earth-shattering orgasms and beautiful, heartfelt intimacy, men need to look at the wounds that they have closed their heart space, heal those, and then open the heart and connect it to the penis. And women usually start with, in my experience, with looking at the wounds that have been caused right in, between the legs, and heal those violations and those wounds, and then connect this open sex center, their open yoni, to their heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And with if we call it Kundalini, the Shakti energy, it wants to move freely through us. And its biggest blockage is our own resistance to it. And this resistance comes through conditioning, it comes through stories, it comes through X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But the acceptance that the Kundalini Shakti energy only wants to heal us is very beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's why sexual energy can be so dynamic with accelerating the healing process.
Yeah.
It can also be very volatile energy that, should be
when it's suppressed.
When it's suppressed.
Because you can't actually suppress. It's like trying to, suppress like a massive river with like some wooden beams. It's the energy needs to flow, and we don't actually have any control over it. We can only guide it with our awareness and our embodiment, feeling safe in our body and knowing how to use consciousness with energy. We can create guidance for it. But in reality, we're not in control of the energy that is around us, right? That is life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really about expanding the capacity to feel.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we do with helping people in terms of trauma,
Yeah.
in terms of being able to hold the feelings that they have, the physical and emotional feelings,
Yeah.
to expand the experience of holding that
Yeah.
and
And,
then feeling more comfortable to work through it.
and that's really also where we've been 10 years ago, right? Because we had a really loving and beautiful connection in the first year of our relationship. And at the same time, though, you wouldn't feel a whole lot of pleasure in your body. It would be centered to your penis,
Yeah.
and I would not really feel anything inside of
Yeah.
my body. It's easy to feel pleasure in the clitoris, even though, for some women, even there is a protective armor of numbness. But most women can feel pleasure on their clitoris. But so many women don't have a whole lot of sensation inside
Yeah.
their vaginas. And yeah, it's exactly how you described, right? Like you're closed, I guess the wounds in your heart made you close off to intense feelings, intense experiences
Uh-huh.
on an emotional level. And my wounds closed me off to sensation inside my vagina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's been the journey of opening those back up again,
Mm-hmm.
bit by bit.
Exactly.
We've taken it quite slow though, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has to necessarily be like a bungee jump experience.
Yeah, there's nothing that closes women down more than rushing. So
Yeah.
there's really no point in rushing.
Yeah. And it's all about,
Why would you?
yeah, I would just always love the analogy of opening, like energy flows through wires and our
Yeah.
nervous system is a network of loads of wires.
Yeah.
And to have more energy to flow through it, you need bigger wires.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be in the process of building bigger wires in your body,
Stronger system.
stronger system.
Mhm.
And that not usually, it is the approach of going slowly, bit
Yeah.
by bit.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to blow your wires, because then you have to spend a lot of time picking the pieces back
Yeah.
together.
And people have this all the time. They go to Tantra retreats, to festivals, they have like big openings, like, never cried that much, never laughed that much,
Yeah.
never orgasmed that much, never felt grief so deeply, never felt love so deeply. They're like all these, circuits in their body for emotional energy, orgasmic energy to move through. It's just like blah, 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 blah. And they're like, feel on top of the world, they're like,
Yeah.
wow. And then they come home and they're depressed for a year.
Yeah.
Because it's just the capacity wasn't there to hold that opening. So naturally we close back down, which is not a bad thing. It's like a flower, opening during the day, closing at night. But the flower has kind of been brutally ripped open.
Yeah.
And it's just in shambles afterwards. So yeah, you really want to have this pendulation between opening and closing.
For sure.
And sexual energy, as you said, is so volatile there. And some people even become psychotic if they have a Kundalini awakening.
Yeah.
Because their body, like their system, wasn't able to handle it. And I lost my chain of thought.
Well, I think the message is essentially what comes up must come down. And instead of trying to keep things up, allow things to settle and integrate. And that's why having good meditation or grounding practices to kind of bookend these peak experiences is the way that you're going to build up your nervous system to handle more. So when you go through these really intense experiences, if you're just like up, stay up, 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 come down, leave, back to work on Tuesday, then you're going to be all over the shop. So really looking after yourself and realizing that, okay, if I'm going to have this experience where I'm up in an expansive state, I need to spend, if not double the amount of time grounding.
Yeah, there is no Tantra without meditation, right? And to be honest, if I had a Tantra festival, it would maybe that I'll be deciding the schedule, would maybe not be the most popular, but I would do like a half an hour silent meditation mandatory in the middle of the day,
Yeah. Bring people down.
Because it's just every teacher usually wants to create this like amazing experience, which is beautiful, but then Yeah, if you have only that, it is can really crash. And that's also where the Tantra practices and path, like in this neo Tantra scene, are quite similar to people's experiences in plant medicine.
Yeah.
Because plant medicine, similar to Tantra and sexual energy, has the potential to really blast us open, like completely reshuffle our concept of self, who we thought we are, shatters our identity. Wow, so much potential if I'm not attached to who I think I am, right? I can become someone completely different. Wow. But then at the same time, it's so destabilizing
Yeah.
that just right after the retreat, people give you these testimonials of like, this was the life-changing, da 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 da. And then a week, 2 weeks in, it's so difficult to integrate this intense pattern interrupt into the structure that's your life.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you need to untangle the ego, you need a good grip of what your ego is in the first place.
Yeah, it's not safe to take your ego apart if you don't have a strong ego.
If you don't know how to put it back together.
Yeah.
Because, obviously dissolving the ego is, it's seen as a form of enlightenment, but it also is like, if you want to navigate reality, you need an ego.
Yeah. So the real enlightenment, I guess, is the awareness of how you're organizing your mind, how you're operating, and being able to choose. And I think that is the same with the energies of feminine, masculine, right? Like now we're getting into polarity. But it's like the goal of Neo Tantra is not, spoiler alert, for all women to just wear these flowy things and be super feminine.
And I am
flow.
not Shiva.
And your Shiva is super aware of conscious.
I am aware of everything.
But the real goal is to be able to be aware of what energy you're channeling and which energy you want to use in this moment, and then to decide freely if you want to be in the heart and feel and love and be joyful, because you, Patrick, as Shiva, went to ecstatic dance. And if I'm about to do my taxes, I definitely want to be really focused, aware, and not in this kind of flowy, let's see what happens today kind of vibe, because I want to get my spreadsheet sorted.
Yeah.
Yeah, spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet.
Okay, so we've started with women's numbness. I think one thing that I would add here is social conditioning and religious conditioning and a general shame of sexuality.
Yeah.
So we've been fed, and I don't want to go massively into this because we've already discussed this in other episodes, but I think that's also something that blocks pleasure on a psychological level, of basically feeling that it's wrong to be expressing yourself sexually.
Yeah.
And there again, I feel, to me personally, when you want to have beautiful relationships and amazing sexual experiences, and the answer kind of is always embodiment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's the same with men. It's like, what are the answers to be a better lover? Slow down, practice mindfulness,
Be in your body, yeah.
be present.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that is another thing that holds women back from pleasure, right? If we said disconnection from the body because of trauma, but it's not only trauma, it's also habit. If I have a busy job and I use my brain mainly to be on the computer, this is modern life. This is normal. However, we're spending a whole lot of more time using our senses to kind of receive information from outside, and it's almost like an outward energy. I'm using my hands to feel a surface. I'm using my eyes to recognize something. And if we want to have amazing pleasure, we are having to rewire our brain to receive the information from the inside of our body.
Yes.
So rather than me feeling the structure of this table with the back of my hand, the back of my hand is receiving this caress that is happening because my hand is rubbing over the table. if that makes sense. So this is something I often hear from women. They're like, oh, but I'm so in my head. It's just how I am. I'm just like a heady person. And I would definitely say that in the past. And I changed my opinion on that a bit because I feel it's literally what we practice. And if we want to be less in our head, we need to create more time where we can be in the body. And that can be a pleasure meditation, a really mindful bath,
Yeah.
like anything that we switch the focus from our brain to perceive things for information and bring that awareness onto the inside of our skin.
Yeah. That's why I really like the fingertip pleasure network enabler exercise.
Right. Tell me more.
So it's it's from Betty Martin, and it's just reconfiguring, because our fingertips are the second most sensitive place for pleasure in our whole body.
Yeah.
But
Nerve ending wise.
but because they get used 24/7, or maybe not 24/7, all the times that you're awake, they kind of become very, very desensitized. But so I do this with men, and they find it enjoyable, and I assume women do as well, is when you begin to reconnect the sensation of individual fingers along your skin, you're essentially finding moments of pleasure, and this sends connections to your brain to be like, oh, that's a new pleasure network. And this is the habit that you're talking about, is like, if I'm going to feel more, as a man, if I'm going to feel more pleasure in my body, I need to wake up my body.
Yeah.
I need to feel my body.
Mm-hmm.
So, I need to activate all this area, and I can use my fingers, because they're really sensitive, to go apart my body and be like, oh, how does this feel? And this is also mindfulness. So I'm creating these networks of small bits of pleasure while being in my body, while focusing on them, and just awakening the body's sensation. So the body is essentially, a lot for men, is quite dormant in terms of these pleasure connections.
Yeah.
And so we need to remap them. I need to remap them to be alive and receiving sensations. And that's when, if I've already connected them, if I've connected this area of my neck, and then when I'm experiencing pleasure through intimacy, can I send my energy there? It's much more able to receive energy when you've already connected those networks together. And so it's like, it's just, that's the practice, that's the habit.
Yeah, that is a practice.
You can't have a full body orgasm without getting your body involved.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's the same for women. Depends on the degree of numbness. Of course, sometimes we do the full body, but often we focus on doing this reconnection to the pleasure network at the breasts, and then, all around thighs, outer labia, inner labia, around the entry, and then internally. This term mapping, right? It's like mapping every millimeter of your tissue, of your skin. Yeah, pleasure meditation is a really good starting point. So if you're listening to this and you wonder, how can I have more sensation? What Patrick just shared, using your fingertips on your arms and expanding that anywhere. And what can happen is that emotions are going to keep you away from the focus, and that's the practice. You're feeling what comes up if you slow down so much as you're caressing your arm, and you come back to this meditation, just in any other meditation, right? The mind wanders, but you're coming back. And if you're caressing your arm and you feel frustrated because it's quite numb, you come back.
Great. It's a beautiful practice. I think that's us.
Mm-hmm.
I always like when there's a little moment of gap, silence. I think that's like, I think we're done here.
Completion.
Completion. So, till next time.
Bye.
Bye.